Today's Did You Know number is 97,000. That's the median household income of first time homebuyers in 2024. Welcome into the First Time Keys podcast. This is your host, Adam McAllister, and thank you for making this part of your listening day. Appreciate you being here. And if you would, make sure you hit that like and subscribe so you can be notified of every time we drop a new episode here at the First Time Keys podcast and you don't miss anything. Well, welcome in. Happy Monday or Tuesday, whenever you're listening to this, or really whatever day you're checking out this pod. It's been a weekend. First off, happy Martin Luther King Day. Rough weekend here at the McAllister house. I know our relationship is just starting, so let me give you a little bit behind the scenes, a little get to know your Uncle Adam, if you would, here. And still recovering from last night's loss. I'm a huge Ravens fan, living here in the area where I do, about an hour north of Baltimore. So I've been a Baltimore sports fan my entire life. So watching the Ravens once again find a way to clutch defeat from the jaws of victory is just, it's mind numbing. It's every year and you just get used to it. If you're a Ravens fan and you are not somewhat sponsored or supported by Tums, you're missing out. It's just part of the fandom that comes with being a Ravens fan. I mean, Lamar is amazing. And I apologize for those of you who aren't sports fans. We all have our addictions. We all have our vices. We all have our escapes from life. Sports has always been mine. And last night, I said to my wife with about 5 minutes left to play, I'm like, they're totally losing this game. I said, here's what's going to happen. And it didn't exactly go down the way I called, but it did happen nonetheless when Andrews dropped the pass for the 2-point conversion. So here we are. It's the Bills, it's the Chiefs, and it's the Commanders and the Eagles. So that was the part I was excited about. Like, for the first time ever, we had the ability to have a Baltimore, Washington, a total DMV Super Bowl potentially, or a Ravens Eagles Super Bowl. That's right. Two fan bases the entire NFL can't stand right there in New Orleans for this year's Super Bowl. But it didn't happen. Now the entire country has got to root for the Bills to knock out Mahomes and the Chiefs. And then on the other side, you've got the Commanders and the Eagles. So to my son-in-law, who's a huge Commanders fan, Jordan, congratulations. We're all rooting for you and your team right now. So that's where we are. All right, let's kick off the show. The magic number today, or Did You Know number, was $97,000. And so NAR, the National Association of Realtors, said that was the median household income, first-time home buyers in 2024. So basically, you need $100,000 in order to purchase a home. Now, there's a lot of factors that go into that. The income needed to buy a home varies by state. It even varies by area inside of that state. I mean, if you take that same $100,000 in our local area here in South Central PA and apply that 2 hours east in the Philadelphia area or 3 hours west out in Pittsburgh, that number is going to change dramatically. The other thing to consider is the taxes. Whatever the taxes are in the area, it's also going to be impacted by what's the down payment required. On Friday's episode, we talked to Lisa Cardone. She's the loan officer. She's the mortgage officer. And, talking about different types of mortgage programs. And we're going to have much deeper conversations about that in upcoming episodes, getting into the specific mortgage programs and the down payments that are required. But if you're a first-time home buyer, you may very easily be going into an FHA, which is 3.5% down. And then you also have the pieces of closing costs and describing just what does make up closing costs. So there's a lot of factors into this. And again, depending on where you live, depending on the hyper local area in which you're going to focus in on to buy a home, that number is going to be greatly impacted. But according across the board from the NAR, $97,000 was the number that was needed to purchase a home. And we're going to get into this today. So today's main topic that I want to address is, are you ready to buy? Are you financially ready to buy a home. It's making that big jump from renting to where you made that first initial deposit, and then you're paying the monthly rent payment. And then depending on who your landlord property manager is, you may have even surrendered a last month's deposit. But really, outside of that, that's the only money you've had leave your pocket as it comes to a place to live and a roof over your head. And when it comes to buying a home, there's a whole lot more that's involved with that when it comes to it financially. Uh, Forget about just repairs and being a homeowner, because there's always things that pop up, whether it's utility bills, which you're going to have if you're renting. But I think when you're owning a home, those utilities become a lot more focused in that you're really paying more attention to, okay, what is my heat source? Is it electric? Is it gas? Is it oil? Is it propane? Um, what kind of furnace do I have? Like all of those decisions, if you're renting, you're basically sticking with what is in that building, what's in that apartment. But when you own your home, now you're going, okay, where are my utility costs at? How can I lessen them? Do I look at going solar? Uh, Again, there's another conversation we're going to have later on. So when you look at the money it takes to purchase a home, beyond the home repairs, beyond the upkeep, we're talking about just the money to be able to sit down, sign off on all those mortgage forms, and actually purchase the home. So let's get into this. Uh, am I ready to buy a home? Do you have steady income? And that's question number one. Do you have steady income? And by steady, I mean, not, I made $3,000 last month selling candles on Etsy. And this month I made $12, delivering DoorDash. Banks, lenders, mortgage companies, they want to know that you can make that mortgage payment every single month. I know, shocking, totally surprised. So let's dive deeper into this. So question one, do I have steady income? With that, do you have steady income for at least a year to 2 years that's provable? Now, we're going to get into the conversations of self-employment, because there's different types of loans, there's different types of underwriting that mortgage companies are going to have for that. But I just want to talk to you that right now that are going to work, you've got a scheduled time to be there, to get in, get out, and you're being paid for that. So do you have documentable income for at least a year to 2 years that's consistent? Because at the end of the day, banks are going to go, okay, if we lend you this money, can we make sure you're going to make those payments because you've got enough money in your account every single month to make them? And that's really where that comes down into. So look at your income. Is it consistent? If you work a commission job, you may have weeks or months where you're, riding the dips, you're up, you're down. But at the end of the day, over a course of a year, you have an average income that you can base that off of. Excuse me, I can talk here today. If you are a regularly hourly employee, if you're a salaried employee, you're going to have documented income. But the most important thing here is the word steady. If you're job hopping, if you are going, well, you know what, right now I'm over here, but the other day they kind of pissed me off. So now I'm going to leave that place and jump to another one. That's not going to put you in position to be able to purchase a home unless your great uncle left some serious cash for you in a trust. And if that's the case, every realtor is waiting for your call right now. But when it comes to that steady income, being in a place of employment, being in an employer where you're like, no, I'm there every single day. I'm going in, I'm coming out, I'm doing my job, I'm getting paid. I can show a steady, normal, consistent paycheck. That is what we're talking about as far as having steady income. And we all know the gig economy is now all on us. So if you drive for Uber, if you drive for Lyft, if you're door dashing, if you're Uber eating, If you're working one of those jobs, make sure you are keeping record of those deposits that's going into your account, because that's what the banks and the lenders and the mortgage companies are going to want to see, is those consistent deposits into your account. Because at the end of the day, that's how they're going to form whether they're able to give you the loan, give you the mortgage or not. So making sure we have that steady income, and we have it not just for now, but we've had that steady income now for at least a year to 2 years. And in most cases, it's 2 years. Now, you may be asking the question, well, wait a minute. I had a steady job and then I moved on, and now I'm working this other job. If it's the same line of work, and again, it's apples to apples and not apples to kumquats, different scenario. If you were working a job, let's say you're working a job as a mechanic and you were working for company X and you were there for 2 years, and then company Z contacted you and said, hey, we actually have a position available here at our shop. We'd love to bring you on. And in fact, here's the pay. And you're going, wait a minute, I just went from there now over to company Z. They're paying me the same, if not better money, but it's a better work environment. That's fine. It's the same consistent like for like position. It's when you go from a mechanic one day and you're like, you know what, tomorrow I'm going to go work at the Orange Julius. That's when they're going, wait a minute, this doesn't make sense. We can't show any common sense theory as to why you went from here to here. And are we confident that in 6 more months, you're not going to leave there and go open up a vape shop? Whatever. They want to know that consistently you're on task and coming into a work environment, and you're working and earning that consistent paycheck. So again, steady and consistency, they're boring. Banks are boring. That's why they love it. So do you have steady income? That's question number 1. Here we go. Question 2. Do you have money saved for a down payment and closing cost? And this is a podcast. There are a million of them out there, and you may have heard something on another podcast or TikTok or Instagram that you can buy a house with $0 down. Sure. And you can also start a band with no musical talent. Doesn't mean it's the best idea or it's easy to do in any market situation. So for the regular home buyers, if you want to go search out all the different crazy ways you can purchase a home with no money down, God love you. As they say in the South, bless your heart. You're not who I'm talking to right now. I'm talking to the average want-to-be home buyer who's like, get me on the path. So let's talk about this. If you've got money saved for down payment and for closing costs, let's use our standard FHA mortgage. So on a $100,000 house, you're going to need $3,500 to put down as down payment for an FHA loan. Fair enough? So from there, now you can calculate, okay, what if it's a $200,000 or $300,000 or $400,000 house? Factor in, again, to keep things simple today, we're going to use an FHA mortgage and 3.5% down. So going back to our example, $100,000 home, you're going to need $3,500 of your money, not from the seller, but $3,500 of your cash as skin in the game. I'm not going to go down into the realm and rabbit holes of gift money and things of that nature right now. We'll do that in future conversations. But $100,000 house, FHA, 3.5%, you're going to need $3,500. Now, closing costs. What are closing costs? All right, let's have this conversation. Closing costs are going to be the additional money you're going to need to be able to close on that home, to basically pay off and prepay, if you would, some of the fees you're going to have as a home buyer and a home owner. The biggest one, of course, being your taxes. In our area, we have 3 that make up your mortgage payment. So I'm going to use the 3 that we have in your area. Talk with your lender, talk with your realtor. They'll be able to give you the specifics. But for here in South Central PA, we have school taxes, county taxes, and local municipal taxes. That's what we have here in the great Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. Of the three of those, the school taxes are by far the largest of the taxes. And then you have the county and then the local. All three of them are at different rates. They call them millage rates. But instead of getting too far into the weeds, the taxes is going to be the biggest part of your closing costs because they're going to put that into real estate term escrow account for which your taxes will then be paid out of. Now, they'll be part of your mortgage payment, but you're going to stroke a check at closing in order to fund that initial escrow account for your taxes. In addition to closing costs, state by state, this is going to be different, which is why there's never a hard number I can put on closing fees. But figure around 5 to 8% of the purchase price is going to be additional closing costs. And again, they're going to make up taxes. Here in Pennsylvania, we have a state transfer tax. So anytime a property is sold or bought, there's a 2% transfer tax that is paid by the state. Now, here in PA, 1% of that is paid by the seller. The other 1% is paid by the buyer. Your state where you live could be different. You're also going to have notary fees, title insurance, different document fees, just a bunch of nickel and dime fees that are going to add up depending on which state you're in. In addition to that, you're also going to have your appraisal, which could be anywhere from $400 to $800, again, depending on where you live, as well as your home inspection fees. So to add it all up, you're looking at around 3.5% for down payment, another, let's call it 7% for closing fees. So right off the top, just to keep numbers round, let's call it 10%. So you're going to need 10% of the initial purchase price in cash available to close when that home goes to settlement. So again, using our example of $100,000, there's 10 grand. So do you have cash set aside to use when it's time to settle on the home? So there's the other big factor to it. Now, again, there are such things that you can utilize, such as gift funds from family and friends. Depending on what home you're looking at, you could also be looking at some seller concessions to help offset those. There's also mortgage programs, especially for first-time home buyers, where you can get some closing cost assistance. I know here in Pennsylvania, we've got several right now where you can get up to 5% of the purchase price given to you as a grant to help offset your closing fees. So look at where you're looking to buy, talk with your lender, talk with your realtor. They'll be able to guide you into what are the best ways that we can offset or try to offset your cash out of pocket. Doesn't change the fact, though, that you're going to want money saved to be able to put towards the down payment and closing fees. All right. So question 1, do I have steady income? Question 2, do you have cash saved for down payment and closing fees? And now question number 3, are you ready to settle down? Because buying a house is like getting married to a building. It's a commitment, people. So be ready. And that's very, very important. We talked in episode 1, how long do I want to be here? Do I want to be here for just a few years, or do I plan on laying down some roots and being here for some time? Are you in a position where you're like, yeah, I think now's the time? What's happening in your life that you're saying there's a reason why renting is no longer for me? It's time for me to own a house, to start building my own equity and controlling my payments, as opposed to not paying a landlord. Because after all, when you're paying for a rental, you're basically making a mortgage payment for your landlord. That's just a simple truth. And by the way, the old real estate line of renting is 100% interest as far as the interest rate. So here's the deal. If you answered yes to all 3 questions, do you have steady income? Do you have money saved for a down payment? And are you ready to settle down? Congratulations, you're not totally delusional. But if you're still unsure, don't worry. That's what this podcast is here for. And if you only answered yes to one, or you didn't answer yes to any of them, that's perfectly great. Because with this, you're going to learn how to get there. And I'm excited to help you get to where you want to get to. And that's in your new home. Coming up next, we have got Tales from the House. Got a fun one for you today. Make sure the kids aren't in the car when you're listening. This is the First Time Keys podcast with your host, Adam McAllister. Tales from the House. Oh, man. All right. So, again, the full disclaimer here on this story before we get involved, please make sure you don't have kids or anyone who is super sensitive to adult conversation within the next few minutes, because that's where we're heading. So 5 seconds for earmuffs. Here we go. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Earmuffs on. Cool. All right, here we go. So in the course of showing homes, I've come across a lot of different stuff. And we're going to get into some of those things that I've seen in this story. And this isn't one specific house. This is record and experiences of several. So a tip to those that are thinking maybe we want to sell our house. So part and a big part of selling your home is making sure your home is ready for showings, because random people you've never met before are going to be walking through your home. So you want to make sure the house is cleaned up and any personal effects you have put away. And I mean in a drawer, maybe locked up, just certain things you don't want out for the general public to see and be aware of. So this one story, but it goes so many times. And that is, yes, I am going through a house when someone has left a vibrator out on a bed, or they have left some other adult toys out on nightstands. Look, this is embarrassing for everyone. This one situation, though, was super embarrassing because the folks who were looking at the home actually loved the house and decided to write an offer and get the home. And I can tell you, about 35 days later, when we were sitting across from the table from one another, and my folks very much so remembered the showing we had because, well, their Uncle Adam is a smart-ass realtor, and we had fun conversations as we were doing the final walkthrough going, hey, guess what's not here today? And then we go into closing and we get face-to-face with the sellers and go, hey, thank you so much for the house. And unspokenly, thanks for making sure the vibrator was gone. So again, your Uncle Adam's advice here, please, when you're getting your home ready for showings, make sure all personal effects are stowed away out of sight for the general public. And oh, by the way, if there's one thing I've learned, there's a lot of swings that I did not know were out in the general public. Maybe not the swing, but a lot of hooks, heavy duty industrial gauge hooks inside of bedrooms that are clearly overkill for a house plant. So again, just a quick tip from your Uncle Adam. Make sure the house is ready for showings, and you're not showing off more than what you had intended when it's time to sell, when it's time to sell your home. So there you go. Tales from the House today. Vibrators and sex toys, make sure they're put away. It's just one of those things that no matter how often you see it, it makes you a little uncomfortable when you're in someone else's home. What you do inside your own home, no judgment here. But when the home is available for all to see, just, give the house a quick once over, like, hey, is the oven off? Yep. Is the washer going? Nope, it's shut off. Did we put the vibrator away? Yes. Okay, cool. Checklist is done. Let's get out of the house, and hopefully the people coming through will want it. So that's my tales from the house today. All right. We're going to wrap up the show. And coming up next, again, this is the First Time Keys podcast with your host, Adam McAllister. Today's tip of the week is know your numbers. Talk to your local lender. Have the conversation. We talked in this episode today about making sure you've got cash saved. You've got enough steady income. You've got enough money saved up to buy the home. Having the conversation with a local reputable lender will be able to give you the information to know, hey, are there programs I can utilize to help offset the money that I thought I was going to need in order to buy the home? Because without having that conversation, you're not going to know. And this is where I am always a proponent of talking with local lenders in your area, because they're aware of the programs that your state, that your commonwealth, that your region may offer. And there's a bunch of different programs out there. The one thing I always hear is, oh, I'm a first time home buyer. What programs are out there? And for a while there was none. And then for a bit there was one. And now there's like 6 or 7, all depending on where you live. So having the conversation with that local lender about the programs that you qualify for is just going to make you, one, a smarter home buyer, and 2, a home buyer who's got a little extra cash in their pocket if you're able to take advantage of these programs. So knowing your numbers and having those conversations with your local reputable lender is going to be paramount to you getting into your home, and maybe getting into your home with a little less cash needed out of your own pocket. That's my tip of the week, man. I mean, the number of times I've talked to someone and they've gotten a pre-approval with a national lender. They sponsor football games and college bowl games, and you see them all the time advertising on TV. And sure, they do mortgages, but they're not a specialist in your local area. You know who is? Your local lenders. And that's why they're so important, because your local lenders, and I'm going to put the term local reputable lender, talk to folks, they'll give you names. They're going to be the ones who are going to be in tune and educated on what programs are available in your area that are going to be a huge benefit to you. So know those numbers, have those conversations, and keep your hard-earned money, as much of it as you can, in your pocket. It's all, it wasn't naughty by nature, but it was OPP, and that's other people's money. Wait, other OPM, other people's money. Yeah, you know me. Yeah, I screwed it up. Yeah, that's right. Proud Gen Xer, and I screwed up a naughty by nature title. Trust me, I'm not happy with myself. So that wraps things up. Thank you for tuning in. Don't forget, please hit the like and subscribe as we're continuing to grow out this channel and this podcast. This is the First Time Keys podcast, and I am your host, Adam McAllister. I'll see you guys next time. See you.